I know there's a lot of clickbait on the internet these days with lots of social media posts with giant headlines like outrageous and you won't believe this. But trust me, when you hear what the Liberal government is going to do, you actually won't believe it. I know because I've been warning my friends, my family, and the most common reaction when I tell people what Mark Carney and the Liberals are about to do is that it's so outrageous they simply don't believe it.
The federal government has unveiled its roadmap to phase out the sale of gas and diesel passenger vehicles. After 2035, you won't be able to buy new ones anymore.
Starting in just 6 months, the government is going to start implementing their EV mandates. The Liberals are going to start mandating what kinds of cars car dealers can sell. And eventually, the sale of this car will be illegal in Canada. I know what you're thinking. Who would ever think that in Canada, the government would have such a massive violation of our basic freedoms that they would ban gas and diesel powered cars?
All new light duty vehicle sales in Canada to be electric or plug-in hybrid by 2035. This includes the interim goals along the way, beginning with 20% of all new vehicle sales be EVs by 2026.
We need to start talking about this now. We need to raise the alarm so that Canadians understand that in just 6 months, the government is going to start implementing this insane policy.
Tesla has made roughly 2/3 of all the electric cars in the United States. I'm not sure if most people are aware of that.
What about the support though for the charging network? I mean, there are parts of this bill and no.
No, I mean, do we need support for gas stations? We don't. So there's no need for this for support for a charging network. I would delete it. Delete.
So what are the Liberals actually doing? Let's get into the policy stuff. And I know that this can be a little less spicy, but stay with me because this is really important. Starting in 2026, the Liberals are going to force automakers to make sure that 20% of their new car sales are zero emission. And that's less than 6 months from now. And by 2035, every single new car sold in Canada has to be electric. Full stop. The most insane part is what happens if a company doesn't meet their quota. They get slammed with a fine, up to $20,000 per car. The only way around this is a credit system where Canadian automakers will have to buy credits from EV producers. And what's the biggest EV producer on the planet? Elon Musk's Tesla.
His name is Elon Musk. He saved free speech. He created so many different great things.
Now there's more to this credit system, and we're going to come back to it. What do you think is going to happen if the Liberals get away with doing this? If you, the voter, allow the government to take away your freedom to buy whatever car you want, do you think they're going to stop there? Do you think the Liberals will suddenly look out on Canada and say, we have controlled enough of it. We have reached equilibrium? Of course not. They're going to move on to the next thing. The Liberal Party is run by a legion of busybodies who think they know more than you, and that your life will be better if you just let them make more and more decisions for you.
In this country, the federal government moving ahead with its plan to ban some single-use plastics today. 6 items are on the banned list. They include plastic bags and some takeout food containers.
I mean, these are the guys that took away your right to just go to the store and buy Zins. There's actually somebody in government who thought we couldn't possibly let the people buy 12s. This is who Mark Carney is. This is who the Liberals are. They will always look for new ways to run your life. Before we get too far into this, let's take a step back. Think about the first car you owned. It meant something different for everybody. For me, it meant I no longer had to borrow friends' cars or freeze waiting for public transportation. For other people, it was after working a whole summer to save up and rolling in that first day of school, owning that car. For so many working class Canadians, it means that they're able to get a job because they can get to and from work reliably. The point is, in Canada, you used to be able to afford a decent car for around $10,000. That meant that car ownership was accessible to almost every Canadian. But no matter what, for everyone who owns a vehicle, it's all about freedom. And that's an amazing feeling, knowing that you can do just about whatever you want and go just about wherever you want. And that freedom that just about every working class Canadian could afford to have is being taken away by this insane Liberal government policy. And here's how it's going to do that.
This is a very big country. You know, people use their car a lot to go from one city to the other. That's why I asked you about charging stations. So you will have to accompany this ambitious 20% by 2026 with a huge infrastructure across the country, even in remote areas.
Absolutely. And I don't personally own a vehicle. I've never owned one, but my service vehicle as minister is 100% electric vehicle. So I totally understand what some of the challenges are. I'm living it.
If the government's going to ban gas-powered vehicles, then obviously Canada's going to need a whole lot more charging stations. Studies show that Canada's going to need 700,000 of them. Right now, there's only 60,000. So that means Canada's going to have to build 10 times the amount of charging stations that we have today. And remember, this mandate starts kicking in 6 months. There's currently no plan to build them. There's no budget, there's no timeline, none, zero, zilch.
What about the support though for the charging network? I mean, there are parts of this bill and no?
No, I mean, do we need support for gas stations? We don't. So there's no need for this for support for a charging network. I would delete it. Delete.
Okay, all right.
I'm literally saying get rid of all subsidies. I mean, when we started Tesla, there were no EV subsidies at all, and gasoline was super cheap. We did not anticipate any subsidies. That came later, and I would just say just delete them all.
And this brings me back to the credit system.
The new electric vehicle availability standard now includes an early credit system to help automakers comply by encouraging them to get more EVs on the market as early as possible and even next year, and to build more charging infrastructure.
So a traditional manufacturer has to sell 20% of their vehicles as EVs, but the market simply doesn't want them. Let's say they only sell 10% of their sales as EVs. They have to go out and buy those credits from a company that sold more than 20%. So let's look at Tesla. 100% of the cars that they sell are electric. So that means in the first year, 80% of the cars they sell will generate extra money for Tesla because they can then sell these credits to traditional car companies. These credits aren't cheap because the government penalties for not making the sales or buying the credits is $20,000 per vehicle. So what do you think these credits are going to be worth? If the government's going to fine you $20,000 for not having the piece of paper, that's what the credits are going to be worth. Your new car sale will be subsidizing Elon Musk's Tesla at 20 grand a pop, right out of your pocket. Trust me, you are not mad enough about this. So what happens when people either don't want or can't afford new EVs and manufacturers aren't allowed to sell any new internal combustion engines? Well, welcome to Cuba. For different reasons, but same outcomes, you can't get new cars in Cuba. The result? People just keep driving their cars from the 50s and 60s. They spend money on repairs because they simply either can't afford or can't get newer vehicles. That's what's going to happen in Canada. Many people in Canada, when they find out they need a major engine overhaul or a new transmission, will make the calculation, spend $5,000 to $10,000 on repairs, or put that money down on a new car and drive it for another decade. If new gas-powered vehicles simply aren't available, Canadians won't be able to make that choice. They're going to be spending more and more money keeping their older cars running. No one will get rid of their old cars. Instead of spending money they don't have on cars they can't afford, they will spend money on keeping their older cars running longer. In fact, we were thinking about this when we were planning this video, and we had the thought, there might be a day in Canada when you no longer ask how many kilometers are on a used car. Will it really matter if one has 1.6 million and another has 1.9? When the entire car has been overhauled so many times that what you'd really be asking is, when was the last time you replaced the transmission? What about Canada being a big, vast country? There are just many places where EVs aren't practical. The Canadian Automobile Association found that EV batteries lose 40% of their range in winter temperatures of just -7 to -15. Anybody who lives anywhere in Canada in the winter outside of possibly Vancouver Island and southern BC, you know that is a joke.
It is absolutely brutally cold. It was -41, an all-time record for that day. And the wind chill, I'm not even embellishing this with a wind chill. I could make it even worse. It was -51.
Hey Liberals, it's Canada. Have you met me?
EVs are quickly reaching cost parity with their gas-powered alternatives. That's because the electricity you buy to power your electric vehicle is much cheaper than gasoline and not subject to the volatility of international oil prices.
Now, I know people who have EVs and they brag about how much cheaper it is to charge their battery than fill up their old car with gas. Here's the thing, almost a third of the cost of a liter of gasoline are taxes. Do you think the government's just gonna kiss all that revenue goodbye? Of course not. They are not going to let billions of dollars in tax revenue simply evaporate. They're gonna get that from your electrical bill. They will get from electricity what they are now getting from gasoline sales. What about the impact on jobs? This policy is going to cost up to 40,000 jobs in the automotive sector. And that's not coming from me. Those numbers come from auto industry analysts themselves. It's really actually simple. When the cost of vehicles skyrocket, fewer Canadians will be able to afford to buy, so fewer need to be built. So jobs get killed. Now I know we all have that friend that says, yes, this is a massive assault on our freedom, but it's for the environment. Here's the thing. If every single car in Canada was switched to electric today, the drop in greenhouse gas emissions would be equivalent to 0.08% of the total emissions that China produces in a year. So it wouldn't even undo a day's worth of emissions in China. The Liberals are going to inflict this kind of pain and misery on Canadians, and the result wouldn't even be a rounding error in greenhouse gas emissions when you compare it to China. So let's summarize where we're at very quickly. You're going to lose your freedom of choice to buy the vehicle that you prefer. It's going to spike the cost of vehicles by around 20 grand per car. It's going to kill jobs in the automotive sector. It's going to drive up the cost of electricity even for your own residents. None of it will actually have an impact on the environment, and Canada is going to have to spend billions, if not trillions of dollars upgrading our electrical grid. Now, why would anybody go along with this policy? Why is Mark Carney keeping Justin Trudeau's insane EV mandate policy? Well, remember, Mark Carney was chair of Brookfield Asset Management.
You were the vice chairman at Brookfield Asset Management prior to
the chair. I was the chair.
Sorry.
What does Brookfield Asset Management invest in? Could it be that Brookfield invests in the EV supply chain? Absolutely. Here's just one example. Brookfield made a major investment in EV charging infrastructure. That means that every time the government subsidizes or mandates a new EV charging station, Brookfield has the potential to get a big payoff. Mark Carney has run this con before. Here he is on a panel bragging about using his power and influence to help get regulations in place that benefit private companies that he then invested in.
I do spend some time advising on what, again, pro bono, but advising on the types of policies that are going to have maximum impacts. So the question is, are we going to have green, sustainable aviation fuel? What's happened in the UK, the EU, is they've said to major airlines, look, if you're flying in and out of Heathrow or wherever, you have to have 10% of your load has to be sustainable aviation fuel by, I think it's 2030. Consequence of that policy has been to convert some entrepreneurs in Texas, in this case a company called Infineon, to become economic, because all of a sudden American Airlines, British Airways need to buy that fuel. They'll pay a green premium. In that case, we Brookfield put $1 billion to work there, and it's a fantastic opportunity.
I put the link to this clip in the description section because this alone warrants an entire video about how Mark Carney has run this play before. But let's get back to this insane policy. This is kind of like the hallmark of big government policies, isn't it? Whenever the government says they're going to do something to make your life better, they always have these utopian ideas that they claim will make your life so much better. But then they have to force you into it. When the Soviets rolled out a new restriction on freedom or individual liberty, it was always sold as doing it for your own good. They didn't call the Berlin Wall the wall to keep you in. They called the Berlin Wall the anti-fascist wall. They sold it to the people of East Berlin as something that was there to protect them. The government documents explaining this policy reads like it came right out of the Soviet Union Politburo. Let me give you an example. Quote, "The regulations will help ensure that the supply of zero-emission vehicles being sold in Canada keeps up with consumer demand. It will increase the supply of new and used ZEVs, enhance choice, and reduce wait times." This is maddening. Enhance choice by banning the sale of an entire category of vehicle? I mean, there are Soviet commissars alive today that if they read that would probably think, "Ooh, I don't think the public's gonna buy that." You would think that Canadians are just dying to buy EVs, but they just can't find them anywhere because all the language is about making EVs available. The whole document is sprinkled with phrases like, in order to make EVs more available, in order to give consumers the ability to buy EVs. Here's the thing. You can buy them right now. There is no shortage. This actually reminds me of a story I was told by someone who moved to Canada from one of the Soviet bloc countries, who said that one day there was a riot in their city, and the state-run newspaper reported it, saying that the citizens were rioting because the bakeries were out of rye bread. Turns out the bakeries were out of all bread. The people were rioting because they were hungry, but the state-run propaganda reported it as these picky peasants not getting what they want and rioting instead. Now, some of you might be thinking, come on, Andrew, you're making a link between Soviet-era bread lines and EV mandates. Well, here's the thing. It's the only explanation. We've already unpacked it. It doesn't do anything significant for the environment. It will kill jobs, eliminate consumer choice, and drive up costs. What possible reason could the government be ramming this through? Because here's the thing. The auto sector has to be one of the most hyper-competitive industries there is. Think about it. There are dozens of brands of major manufacturers. There's car lots in cities big and small, sometimes 4 on a corner. Each one of these manufacturers has an entire team of researchers spending millions of dollars, not to just meet the needs that you have today, but they try to guess what you might want next year. And they do that all independent of government. No one's forcing them to do that. They do that because they know that in most places you can literally walk half a block and find something else. This mandate is so unnecessary because if more and more Canadians wanted EVs, manufacturers would give it to them. They're in the business of making money and giving consumers what they want. If these ideas, like EVs, were so good, people would want to buy them. You wouldn't need the government to force you to do it. Clearly, EVs don't work for most Canadians, and the Liberals want to take away the choice from all those Canadians from buying the car that best suits their needs.
CEOs of 3 automakers that met with Prime Minister Mark Carney Wednesday told him that meeting those targets and the fines they'll pay for failing to hit those targets will kill the Canadian auto industry.
The EV mandate itself is not sustainable. The targets that have been established cannot be met.
Experts, industry leaders, car companies, car dealers, consumer advocates are all denouncing this program and warning how devastating the outcomes will be. So why are the Liberals so dead set on imposing this on you? It's because it fits in with their worldview, that they simply know better, that they are the elites who always get to run things and make decisions, and they don't care if they're going to impoverish Canadians along the way. That's why we have to fight back so hard on this policy. You know the feeling that comes with buying a car for the first time. You even know what it feels like when you have a full tank of gas. So many independent decisions are made because you have the ability to do that. All of this is being taken away by this EV mandate. These ivory tower elitists look down on the working class and decide for them that they don't need things like vehicles. Their life doesn't change. They still have their fancy cocktail parties. They still get to jet set around the world to places like Davos and film premieres. And millions of Canadians who just want to be able to pick up and go on a Saturday with their family or get to work have to pay more. That is the injustice of this policy, and that's why we have to fight back against it.